seconds, and then
No, we got full held. We should have won.
yeah, they
Push, but we fucked
Okay.
it up.
So you want to specifically talk about the comp you're playing and figure out how you're gonna play this comp.
yeah, because it's we're working with everyone's strengths in the team.
Okay. So can we go into a little bit more depth about what the comp does? So can you tell me a little bit of like more specifically what your strategies are at the comp?
Yeah, our strategies with the comp is basically aggressively move in and force the enemy team to have to react to us and play in a way that they don't want to. Right? So if because a lot of it is double shield at the moment, so we're trying to force the enemy team to move. We're doing a little bit of scouting, and we're using D.Va to control high ground with Genji here. We do successfully boop them off the high ground. We pull back to try and stabilize, and what we're trying to do is force more rotations out of the enemy team, or as many as we possibly can.
Kind of losing a lot of people along the way.
We do, yeah, we do. And I think that comes into pathing more cleanly.
I'm kind of confused on why you're not running Reinhardt with this. The way that the Sigma is playing.
Doggo's quite a good Sigma. So like I said, we are trying to just play into each person's strength.
Okay. I can show you why. So with this comp, I think that you're correct on you want to play you want to force people to rotate, right? But I think that if you try to like pinpoint charge, meaning that you guys are going to come up to here, wait, let me get out here. You guys are going to walk up main and you guys are all together except maybe the DPS. You guys are going to path right up to them. You're going to go like that, right? You're going to come up everyone here. And there's no really way that people spread out here. So I think the first thing we can look at is like how we can spread out, right? If we want to play this comp at range. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what we find ourselves doing more and more as the match goes on, because we didn't actually get a chance to practice this in scrims at all, this comp. And we haven't practiced Rialto in scrims either at all. So as the match goes on, we end up finding a lot more angles and playing a lot more spread out, like a traditional dive. But then you have that backbone of the Brig and the Sig.
Okay. Okay. So it's really awkward because the Sigma wants to essentially slow things down as much as he can, right? He wants to be able to encircle them and try to put in as much poke as possible, right? So we want Sigma to be able to put as much poke as possible, right? But it seems like, at least the way people are playing, that we have the Genji going in, we have the D.Va going in, committing. We have the Brig on the commit sometimes. At least in this case, we do have the Brig on the commit. We also have Anna on the commit, like committing with the team, right? So I'm not really sure what role the Sigma plays in this composition, right? But let's just assume we're keeping Sigma for now. So where would we ideally want Sigma to play? And anyone can answer. No wrong answers.
Sig on the flank.
Can you give me a specific place?
So when our D.Va went in and Sigma was already on that right-hand flank there, kind of creating that off with the shield. He came together with the shield and the other Sig was there. Instead of coming back to push in with our D.Va at the same angle, maybe go the other way and push around when their Sig fell back.
There we
Take
go.
and control that space.
Right? And what this does is it like essentially cuts off this area. Because then you have that area on the point, and then the people that are on the point are kind of stuck, right? So do you want me to look at like how things you can change about the comp, or are you pretty set on this comp playing this one?
So with certain maps, we'll run a ball instead of the Sigma. And we'll also run Junk instead of the Genji and an Ashe instead of the Widow. And we do switch out the Ana for a BAP and Brig for a Lucio. It depends on the comp. We do switch it out. I'm kind of myself thinking that the ball might be a thing we could go with more than the Sigma, because then that would sort of lean more into that harassment and force the enemy team to move.
So do you okay, let's first think about the tank's hero pool. So let's start with Doggo. So Doggo, what are your heroes that you play?
I usually just play like Sigma, Diva, Zarya.
Sig, Diva, Zar. Okay. And what does Gat play?
Zarya, Diva, Sig, Rhine, sometimes Bull Monkey. Basically everything. Nothing's particular, but my strengths lie in Diva and Zarya right now, and Sig.
Diva, Zarya, and Sig. Okay.
I'm practicing Reinhardt. It's going pretty good.
He's not that bad of a Reinhardt.
So I think this comp would work a lot better if you guys went with Rhine Sig. If you guys, once you guys get up to that level, right?
Yeah, we have tried running Ryan Sig. I don't know what it is, but our we can't do double barrier very well.
Okay.
Like we're
Is
garbage at
is
it.
it the portable barrier of the SIG that actually we benefit from then? More than just having a Ryan put up a shield wherever he is?
Yeah, see the barrier with the Sig, if the enemy team's running an Ashe, you just put the barrier in the Ashe's face. They can't just stand there and hold that sight
So
line. They
do you
have to...
want to talk about how we can run the Rhine Sig, or do you want to watch this game? Because right now, I can tell you with this comp, you're gonna have a really hard time, like you said, maintaining the space that you get, right? And
Yeah, we don't hold it, but we can take it.
But I think that a lot of the times, you're gonna find that you would rather have something in the place of the Sig here, because Sig takes a really long time to get places, right? Let's just take this high ground as an example, and he also he has to play at a really safe distance, right? Whereas your Diva and your Genji are just like you stage, like let's say we stage like up here, and then we hard commit, right? But your Sigma can't really do that with the team. It can work, but it's not. It's definitely not like gonna be like super easy. So do you want to keep on talking about this one, or do you want to talk about double shield and we can focus on other things in this game?
Yeah, maybe talk about how the double shield would be better in place of the Sig and the Diva.
Okay, so let's talk about double shield. All right,
Yeah.
so we have, so with your double shield, right, it doesn't seem like anyone played a risk, so you're going to end up playing Rhine Sig most likely, right? Yes?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so if you had Rhine in place of the Diva here, what would happen is, yes, you would path together, right? Let me go ahead and spread out together. Like, for those who weren't in the previous VODs, pathing is basically where we want to hold as close as we can together until we get to our destination, or that's the wrong circle, until we get to where we need to, and then we can split up, right? But getting to here is the first step, and you have to get everyone there in one piece, or else you're fighting with 5. As soon as you do get there, though, what you do want to do at double shield, and the reason why double shield is quite good right now, is because it's really good at encircling people. Meaning that if you have your Rhine come up here, and if you have your Sig come here, right, the people on the point are pretty trapped, right? Because the Sig puts a shield here and throws stuff that way and this way. The core of your team, probably with your Brig and your Ana coming up main, right? Like your Ana can sit here and try to focus on both sides and eventually come up one side and get a nade in. And this is only possible because your Sig took this position here, right? So, and your Genji can go ahead and come up here and do the same thing and basically be another off tank. And your Brig can do kind of the same thing, where if she wants to take another position, let's say she wants to come around this way and try to take high ground so that the other team can't, then you're taking more space, right? But we can kind of see with the D.Va and the Sig, we can't really do that, right? Because D.Va can't sit here for too long. As soon as D.Va gets pressure, she has to run away. And Sig kind of is the same way, but he has a little bit more staying power than D.Va. So you can see you have the, yes, you can take the space relatively easily with the D.Va and the Sig, but it makes it hard to maintain it and doesn't give your Genji and your Brig enough time to be able to get to where they need to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think while I'm listening to you explain what we could have done here with the double shield, I'm realizing where we have difficulty with double shield, and I think we overcommit and over-aggress with the double shield. Which is why I was trying to get us to try a different comp and see if we could make that work better for us. But
So
is there a way you can run double shield aggressively rather than being quite passive in your gameplay?
of course. So if we're looking at Blizzard World again, if we switch the Brig to a Lucio, and probably Anna ends up going to something like Moira, what can happen is, yes, once you get here, same thing happens. Ryan comes here, Sig comes here, right? But what the Lucio and the Moira enables you to do, it enables the Ryan to be able to just be like, go, right? Then the Sig is still on the off angle, right? Playing a aggressive position, but the Ryan has more pushing force. And a lot of the times you can play things like Mei with this, you can play things like Kree, you can play things like Reaper, and it gives you a lot more flexibility. You can even play your Widow that you like. If you do want to play the Genji, that would also work. But you still got to make sure that you're controlling the space as Genji. But basically, you just have so much more threat on the front, and you're putting the enemy team on a timer, right? Normally with the Orisa Sig, why that would work in the same scenario is that instead of aggressing into the enemy team, what you would do is you would just try to spam them out and force them to do this back corner. But as Ryan, you kind of want to push hard into them as soon as you get there. And that can help with your aggressive style.
What if we went with, instead of the Rhine Sig, we go with a D.Va Rhine?
So Ryan D.Va kind of does the similar thing where you still want to, like, if we take this point as an example, like encircle them, right? But if this D.Va gets pressured, she has to back out immediately. D.Va's really good at like applying pressure, backing up, right? She basically doesn't have any staying power because DM is on a timer, right? So D.Va does have to make sure that she's like not feeding too much ult and like trying to hold this as long as she can without like taking pressure. So like the Ryan, yes, the Ryan and D.Va do work. And D.Va is one of those things where heroes, like if we take random hero, they have a skill floor and they have a skill ceiling, right? And D.Va both has a high skill floor and a high ceiling, meaning that she's hard to get decent at, and the better you get at D.Va, like the better the character she gets. If you play perfect as D.Va, she can be one of the best characters in the game.
It's like Widow almost in a lot of ways.
Kind of. But there's a point where Widow like just sometimes doesn't work, right? Whereas if the Sigma's like I would say Sigma has a higher ceiling than Widow, because if the Sigma is perfect with shield management and every time you rotate he throws the shield in your face and makes you rotate again, right? Then like he just shuts you out, right? There's so much value you can get out of the Widow based on how good the other team is, right?
Yeah, the reason why I keep thinking about the D.Va is because double shield is quite strong at the moment. We are encountering it quite a lot in matches and scrims, and the D.Va just kind of negates their ability to suck and dynamite on cooldown into your team.
Okay. So let's talk about team comps countering, right? I think I went over this before, but we can talk about this again. So what are the three main comps there are in the game? The rock, paper, scissors, the normal rock, paper, scissors.
Poke, brawl, and dive.
That's not how you spell poke. Poke, Brawl, and dive, right? So do we know what beats what?
Isn't it dive beats poke, brawl beats dive, poke beats brawl?
Sorry, can you say that again?
So poke beats brawl, brawl beats dive, and dive beats poke.
There we go, right? So now we're gonna think about why these things happen. So let's go ahead and start with the two that don't have to deal with your scenario, just so that you have this knowledge, right? So why does brawl generally beat dive?
Because you can just speed in, use cooldowns once you get on top of the dive. Like if the dive engages onto you, you've got all that brawl power that the close range just mess everything up, use all of your cooldowns in one go, and it happens really quickly. Whereas dive is looking for that second engage,
I think
the hard engage.
I think you're getting close. Does anyone else have like an answer that they would like to share?
Not really.
Not really. Do you have any guesses?
Well, if I said it in a better way, so like dive is effective at like a very small period of time during the fight, and brawl, yeah, that's the one. And then brawl is really effective at the start of the fight and loses effectiveness as the fight goes on, and poke is just a straight line.
Yeah. So basically, if we focus on the first one, Brawl beats Dive because as long as Brawl gets past this initial spike when the dive jumps in, right? If you're Brawl and this is Dive and Dive jumps you, if Brawl survives the initial hard engage, then Brawl just wins because Dive has nothing else left. Dive has used all their cooldowns already. Okay, so let's focus on the other one. Why does Poke beat Brawl?
Because there's no point where poke is not as effective at any other point in time, and brawl has to be able to get into the poke team, and getting to them is difficult when they're just poking at you at range effectively and you can't really damage them back.
Yeah. So basically, I think you hit the nail on the head there, where Poke wants to stop pathing, right? We talked about pathing earlier, trying to get to the point, right? If they want to get to the point. So if you are Brawl and you have Poke, you have to get basically melee range of Poke, and Poke has all this time at the beginning of your thing where you have basically no value to be able to throw damage into you. Okay, so now let's talk about the one that I'm really wanted to get to. So why does Dive beat Poke?
Because you have that spike of effectiveness where you can basically stage everything, not take any damage, and then swarm poke from multiple different angles. They don't really have a chance to poke you down as they do with Brawl.
There we go.
Because it happens so quickly.
So the faster we stage, right? The faster we stage and the faster we transition that to engage, right? The better it is for us, because this poke, this attrition doesn't get to be used, right? Because now they have to react to something. Because their win condition's a lot harder than yours, where they have to poke you out while you're staging to make sure that you can't engage, because you need to transition from the stage to the engage. Okay, so now, right, we talked about you wanted to talk about double shield counters. Does dive seem like a viable option?
Yeah, it does. I thinking about it now, when our diva went in GAT and took them all off the high ground, we shouldn't have sat there and let them rotate around the point and set up with their Orisa. We probably should have just gone in harder onto that. But I guess that is a limitation of having the SIG, because it's so slow to follow up.
So I actually think that was fine. I think that you guys stayed there a reasonable amount of time. I think what felt kind of bad was that we mispaced on our DPS and eventually our Ana, and they were able to win out because they got picks there. So if we look at this fight again, right? They have 4 people playing top. And then our Genji comes out the right, he's scouting. Widow comes out the right, spreading out. Trying to grab space. Genji and D.Va go high, right? Force them out. Ashe gets snared, Ashe drops, Mercy drops. Good. Now you guys have high ground control, right? So this is why dive is pretty good against poke, right? Because you saw you couldn't really, as you were diving high ground, there was no real time for them to get damage into you, right? So the people up here had basically no time to get damage back into you. So you were able to do that pretty safely, right? And be able to get out as long as you didn't stay there too long. Okay, you get them out. But this is where it kind of is a little bit awkward, because we do eventually lose our Widow and Anna. And we do try to take the off angle here, but we're a little bit scared of the Sigma. Fight plays out. Rolling on the point. But you guys can kind of see how you guys are basically effectively playing a dive with the Sigma, right? And how that's a little bit awkward now that you have the information about the comps and how they work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And we can see that they eventually got their value out, right? They got their supercharger down, they got all their other damage down, right? So when you guys had your spike, right, with your dive, they actually had their poke phase going, right? And you guys didn't win with your spike. And you may think it's because of Sigma, you may think it's like maybe because you guys didn't dive properly. You know, it's pretty much a combination of a lot of these things. But the lot is that you need to make sure that when you are playing these dive-ish characters, right, you need to make sure that spike is high. And if you guys do end up playing dive into this double shield, then I can definitely help you guys with that. But but you can see like how it's really hard for you to get in because that spike isn't very large, right?
So
Yeah.
should we be playing dive more like pretty much all or nothing in one fight?
Yeah. So
Like just put all of our cooldowns, absolutely everything into the team, then just back out, or
yeah, so basically, we can go over dive. So dive has basically 3 stages, right? The first stage you have, I like to call it setup. And you're trying to look at this entails scouting, which is trying to look out where the team is. This includes, what else does this include? You do not take damage. I'm just going to put no damage, because if you take damage during this time, it just makes you just charge ultimates, right? And then this transitions after you get the information from scouting, then you stage. Staging is really important to not take damage, because if you take damage during staging, you basically delay your engage, which is really bad and good for them, right? Because we talked about the spike, right? So the farther, the longer that they can extend this beginning part, the better it is for them. So we have the staging, which is a lot about setting up. This may entail taking high. It may be surround, whatever. And then it goes to the engage, right? Which is just the fight, right? So you can see with this kind of graph thing, right? You have the setup, right? Then you have the stage right before the engage, then you have your engage, and then you have your fight, right? So what you said earlier about doing getting in and getting out, you only have to get out if like this engage doesn't work, right? Then you can stage again, right? Then you have to go back to the start. Does that make sense?
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we can keep watching now. But I think I really want you guys to see, like, when you guys do engage, like that you don't get a lot, how much value you get from that spike of impact that you have, because you are running this D.Va and this Genji to be able to spike that, as well as the Ana, hopefully, with the antis. Okay, so we're in our setup here. Okay. Okay. So let's watch that again. So now that we went over all of that stuff, let's try to figure out what went wrong in this fight so that we can fix it for next time, right?
Hey, Lemon.
Hello.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Hi.
Hey,
Doing
Lemon's
good.
here.
Okay. So let's try to figure out what we could have done differently in this fight. Okay. So what with the dive steps we talked about earlier, what is this stage?
So this is our staging stage.
This is, I would say it's like right at the end of setup. So like beginning to stage, right?
Yeah. Because I would have thought that when we peaked with the Sig and the Diva peaked main earlier to do a bit of scouting, work out whether they've taken that high ground back again.
But your DPS are already coming out of the hallway. And your Brig, sorry, your Ash and your Brig are coming out of the hallway. So it's during your staging, right? Because you're trying to get them in position for the fight.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Your setup is going to be something like along the lines of like maybe Diva comes out of here, right? And peeks out and tries to look high ground. Okay.
Oh, I'm talking like way back behind the choke.
Okay.
Way back. We did a little scouty boy.
Okay, so let's see that again. Maybe I missed it.
So I'm kind of picking main. Briggs having a look with the third person shield. I'm just going for a little bit of alt charge because I switched off onto the Ash. And then Diva Sig both look up.
Okay,
before
so we scout high
we pass
ground.
left.
So this is our setup, right? This is our setup where we're like, okay, we see 4 high ground, right? Go up here. As soon as we get out this door, we start staging. So we start staging right now, right? Because we're basically committing to an area, right? So that we can set up for the hard engage.
I'm pretty sure our plan was to hug the left and go around into Mega Room.
Okay, but let's look at that again, right? So what do we remember? What are the things we want to do in staging?
Not take damage.
Okay. So no damage. What else do we want to do? What does staging mean?
Oh, take a position
Scouting,
that we're
right?
ready to go on to the enemy team.
Yeah, take a position, right? So get ready for the fight.
Yeah.
Basically those are the things we need to do. But I want to really emphasize, right? So let's go back and look at this fight. And you guys are going to tell me what you guys could have done differently. Right? So do we think we did anything wrong in setup?
I think setup was okay. It was whenever we started to stage. Oh, that's a tiny shield. It was whenever we started to stage, we weren't grouped up enough to make good use or good enough use of the Diva Defense Matrix to not take damage.
Yep, I would generally agree with that. I think that setup went pretty well. So like you talked already a little bit about staging, but we're gonna get a little bit more specific, okay? So I'm gonna go to where staging started. And we're gonna talk about what we could have done about staging. Okay. So staging, right? We walk through here. Okay. So what could we have done differently?
I shouldn't have exited door first with DM up, and I went straight left, hard left with rockets out, targeting whatever the Orisa on the right side.
Orisa Bat, yeah.
Just to distract them.
Okay.
I could have gone like all the way right where Squelch is, so like right side of statue, and dove him off high ground like I did during the initial first push.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's generally a good thing that you noticed. So,
If I would just have a little bit of input, I think we've panicked a little bit and started to try and change what we did from the first one, as opposed to going, okay, let's have another crack at that where we take them off the high ground. You know,
Okay.
so we were like, oh shit, no, we gotta, you know, change the whole plan of what we're doing, and then that led us down this path of trying to go a funky, goofy way, and we could have just tried it again, you know,
Yeah.
with a
That's
different
why I
with a different
really like
hero.
looking at VODs, right? Because when your teammate screams at you to do something, right? Switch characters or whatever, right? Then you can go back and look and say, hey, I think I was right because of these things. And then you can go and confirm it with yourself, right? And if guess what? If your teammate's right, then you're gonna be like, fine. Next time, like I'll think about that and try to look for those things that I think are correct. But in this case, we're gonna look at this and say, and you made a really good observation, whereas like we should have actually still taken these people off of high ground like we did before, right? Instead of trying to walk around and try to fight them. Because we don't have a lot of range damage, right? We have the Diva Genji. They kind of have Sigma, Hanzo, Mercy, Ashe, right? All up here. So we do want to get them off where we want to be, where you make them rotate, like you said earlier, right?
Yeah, and I think that comes down to our experience playing with this sort of goofy comp is we have none, and we haven't really nailed down the goals, the specific goals of what this comp wants to do. And we didn't try and fulfill those goals in that specific fight. We just kind of went, oh, let's change where we go.
Okay. Yeah, but that so like that normally comes before the fight, right? So like that would come that'd come before the game happens, right? Where like your plans are all listed into place. So
Yeah,
like a lot of
and
times before the
I
game,
just kind of threw.
so like you have your plan set up before the game, right? You have plan, right? And whether that be comps, whether that be path, right? You have your plans before the game starts, right? And then you have your game, right? You have your game. And this is where you execute, right? And during the game, you shouldn't really have to worry about these things or coming up with these things, right? Because they should be done before the game. So I would highly recommend that before your game starts, that you actually go over a little bit of like each map or like what plans there are for each map, right? Where there's like, okay, or like even before the map starts, it's like, okay, we're on attack here. We want to make sure that we get them off of high ground. If we're defense point first, is like we got to make sure we like try to make sure that when they go high ground, we contest them, stuff like that, right? So try to think about that before the map starts, because that's already information that you have, right? If they come out on something goofy, they come out on something goofy. But if you're saying you play into a lot of double shield, right? Then you can kind of expect them to play that and say, okay, they're going to be playing these areas, and we want to stop them from doing this. Okay, so now we're going to figure out a plan to stop them from doing this. Because you don't need to stay ready until the timer like ends or until like you want to, really, right? So use the time that you have. And even like before scrims and such, like if you want to focus on one map during a scrim, then you can say, can we make sure we play this map, right? If you guys want to have a plan for it. So you're waiting for Ashe.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think what I was gonna ask is, would it be worthwhile continuing to scrim with this comp to see if we can make it work and see if we can actually make that a thing, or would we be worthwhile just switching out the Sigma for a ball or a Diva for Ryan or something?
I think that is up to you guys. I think if you want to roll with this comp and you guys are like, no, screw you, we're going to do whatever we want to do, right? Then I think that that's fine. I think that you guys can do whatever the heck you want. You guys can win with your goofy comp and go all the way to contenders, right? But and I can definitely help you with you guys, right? But
I think we've got it. If you watched our Rialto, you'd see like we can do this.
Okay. But with this comp, okay, we can talk a little bit more about this comp. Okay, let's go watch this team fight over. So
I think the reason why we can get it to work sometimes is when we use it's quite a versatile comp. You know, there's a lot of different things you can do with it, and I think that's how we have managed to make it work.
Mhm. So, how do you guys view Diva Bomb?
I
Bomb.
will
What
Gat
is-
open up and tell us what you think.
Get?
Paging Gat.
All right.
Oh,
Until he comes back, we can talk about what other people think about Bomb.
okay. I
Uh,
I like to think of Bomb as being like a massive Zaya bubble, right? Where you're just like, I want to go here. I want to take this space, and you can basically just put. I think you use the term force the issue.
yeah. So basically, what you're saying is this bomb forces them to either turn this corner or like stand behind one of these, right?
Yeah, yeah. It forces
Okay.
them. It by itself it achieves the goal that I outlined at the start of forcing the enemy team to move or do something that they don't particularly want to do with a double shield.
Okay. So, okay. So, does anyone else have anything to say about Diva Bomb and what they think about Diva Bomb?
I
I
think it's
just
kind of cute. Got some nice cheeks.
Oh, okay.
I just think Diva Bomb's just like in most circumstances just a good way to take space and like really start off a good fight, get some early picks, stuff like that.
Okay. So it's a good
Yeah, it's a
engage
good way to
tool
engage.
that forces the space similar to Zarya Bubble, right? And then you take the space afterwards, after you throw it, right? So, let's say we could redo this fight. We can wind back time, right? You guys are gonna tell me what you guys think you should have done with Diva Bomb.
60 seconds remaining.
Speed it up a little bit. Okay. Tell me if you guys want to pause at any point, and then you guys can tell me like what you guys think you should have done.
Pause.
Okay.
So I think we probably could have done a little scout quickly, and before we came around the rock, thrown the Diva Bomb. And here's my thinking for that: is you scout, you pick a location to throw the Diva Bomb, and you throw the Diva Bomb, and it basically does the dive for free, right? So
Okay.
you without your team having to take that poke damage from the enemy team,
Mm-hmm.
you've forced them off the high ground, or you've forced these guys on the low ground to the right of the point to move, and then we can come in with a hard engaged dive after we get mech back.
Okay. So. Okay. So after you scout, right, and you say you want to throw it somewhere, where do you want to throw it?
I would just put it into that high ground where the Ash and the
Put it
Sig
right
are.
there. All right.
Yeah, and
Does anyone
then while
else?
the Sig's turning around to put his shield in front of it or something, we dive on him with Genji and then I can go up there, I guess, as well with the Ash, Dynamite, and Lucio.
Does anyone else have any ideas what they want to use with the bomb?
Whenever I chuck it, I usually try to chuck it above where shields are going to be.
Okay.
Because I know the height of a Orisa shield, how far back it goes. Have I chucked bomb at this point? No, I haven't. I think here I chuck it onto point.
You throw it this
Remember,
way, yeah.
try again.
But we're trying to
Yeah.
right now. We're trying to look at where we saw this fight play out, and you guys lose it pretty hard. But we're saying if we could turn back time,
redo.
right? If we could turn
Yeah.
back time, where would we throw this bomb to engage this fight?
I should have probably chucked it top right. Top right from where I am onto the high ground there with the Sig.
Okay, so up there. Does
Just
anyone
like in
else
the-
have any
if I
ideas?
could-
This is basically
If
what
I
Booty
could
said.
draw, I'd draw like right on top of the hay roof.
Mm,
Yeah, basically in that general area, try to get as much coverage as possible, because that should still from that position damage high ground enough to at least force them off point
okay.
or knock them off at the very least, and potentially get some chip damage off the back.
I think you guys have the right idea. So I would say that I would throw the bomb somewhere around here, like really high, like if I was to move the camera, let me go ahead and move the camera. I would throw the bomb right so it explodes right here. What this does is it doesn't let them go to here. Makes them stay up here a little bit, right? If they do want to stay on the outside, right? If it explodes up high, the Sigma's gonna have to throw the shield at an awkward angle, right? And they have to trust their Sigma to be able to do that. And then guess what? You guys get to be able to, if they mess up at all, right? They die to the Diva Bomb. While you guys get to rush down these two, right? Because you have the Lucio. Right? But because we kind of throw it over here, right? I mean, the dragon does come in, but it doesn't do a whole lot. But the kind of the point is that like Orisa gets to like just like walk back with Fortify, and the BAP doesn't even have to use Immort. So we're gonna go to the next fight, and it's just a stagger fight. Okay, we just skip the stagger fight. Is stagger fight. You play. Get desperate.
Ready for battle.
Okay. So okay. Just before the end, just make sure I cover everything you guys want. Is there anything you guys want to cover in specific beyond the stuff you've already done? Or does anyone have any specific questions about their hero or anything they want to cover?
I have a question. Did you win this map?
Negative.
This
Okay.
is the one map we didn't win.
It's impossible to win. They can only draw.
Sorry, I wasn't looking. I was
Okay.
distracted by the Diva Sig tank line.
Squelcher, eggs, or do you have any questions
If you
about
were
anything?
there, you could have stopped us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wasn't. I've done fucking 10 shows in 1 week.
Excuses.
If
I think I have a
anything,
question.
I've got a couple of
What's up?
questions about
I'll-
positioning as well.
There comes.
Mine's just basically solely on
You
Genji.
start us first.
When we're going up the top there, is it a good idea to use deflect, like when they're right there? So like just walk up, like wall climb up, just deflect, and then back up a bit.
Okay. I think the best thing for you to do, I think to answer your question short, I think it is worth using deflect to get them off, right? Because it is your safety. So, but instead of dashing straight at them, you actually don't have to dash. So let's think of another way we could get up there. What are the ways we could get up there?
Wall climb,
Okay, so we can wall climb up this wall. Is there anything else we can do?
go up the stairs.
Come up the stairs? Okay. And doing these two things, right? We don't have to dash, right? I would say if you're really brave, you can go up and wall climb, right? But I would say if you went around the stairs here and you poked in here right before your diva came to hit high ground, then I think that that would have been able to like be like, okay, Genji's scary here. If we rotate back here, he's just gonna come around, right? Which you do. If they go back here, guess what? You come around here and you poke in again. But basically, if they're smart, they will drop down this way, right? And the diva can kind of do the same thing where the diva comes up here, like tries to put in damage where she can. If anyone overstays, they die. But generally speaking, they are going to drop down like this. So yes, I think it is worth it for you to put deflect in. But I think more importantly, it's important to try to make sure that you're saving the cooldowns for like a key moment, right? So like if you dash up here, it wasn't on pen mode. If you dash towards the top, then you don't have dash in case something is low, right? Let's say your diva gets like a super lucky boosters, gets in, like someone gets to like basically 1 health. What did I do? Diva basically gets someone to 1 health, and then you're able to dash through them. But you don't have the dash because you dashed up here, right? You kind of want to save that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So maybe you can focus on, generally speaking, if you want to get someone out of somewhere, deflect, right? Go for it. Expend deflect. But I think you want to make sure that you hold it for like the perfect moment instead of just kind of, just going up there and throwing it. Because what if they call your bluff? What if they're like, oh, this guy's just going to dash up and deflect. So we're just going to sit here and wait till deflect is over, right? then they're eventually gonna win out because you didn't push them off and you used both cooldowns, right?
Yeah, that's where you have to be the turbo galaxy
Right.
brain guy and just know the 15-meter dash distance and dash right click melee something, instantly kill it.
And then Eggs had a
And
question.
then no, I'm just memeing.
Yeah, mine was more around the positioning on this map. I think in the first fight, I probably should have taken high ground once they all jumped off. Because
Okay, so
I got picked off by the Ash
okay.
pretty early on. And I think that's part of the reason why we lost that fight.
Okay.
I mean, I lost the duel with the Ash, to be fair.
So we can look at your positioning here. So where do you think you should have gone?
I think once we pushed them off, I should have just gone straight up to high ground,
I'd probably agree with that, yeah.
as opposed to poking here, and then you see the Ash start shooting at me there, and yeah, boop, dead.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that you should have gone high ground. Let's explore that a little bit more though.
Or you could have stood on the low ground to the right of the statue in where your cursor is, Vtaki, right there, yeah. And then that cuts off the sight line from that right-hand side.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
as
if
well.
she wants to shoot at you from the other side of the objective, you've got your tanks in front of her, so
See, I think this gives you more options. Actually, we can talk about that a little bit. So let's talk about this positions one, right? Let's call this position 1, let's call this one position 2. So position 1, right? What does position 1 have over position 2? Because it definitely has a couple things.
you've got more cover.
You got a lot more line of sight for the tanks as well, who are all the way on the left.
You have more cover of your team, or you have more cover and you have more line of sight of your team. Okay, and that's over position 2, right? Because if they go around the haystack, then guess what? You can't see them, right? What does
Yeah, that's
position
right.
2 have over position 1?
See everything,
Okay,
but I could get flanked as
so
well.
you have more LOS, right? Okay. Does it have anything else?
You also have a mega health pack in that room underneath. It's a lot closer.
Okay, so you have an
Yeah,
HP
yeah.
pack. Okay, anything else?
Oh, I guess low ground has the mega pack on the other side.
Not over
I
here,
think
not
the
in
only-
position 1.
I think the only downside to me being on the high ground is I'd be a bit too exposed as well.
Yeah, and that's by design. So like they usually high grounds have less cover, but you can abuse that by saying so like here. So there's not really any hard cover here, right? Like it'd be kind of fun if there are walls here, but that'd be kind of busted, right? So like if we look at the high ground here, right, and we look at it from their perspective, right? Do you understand why high ground doesn't have cover?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you
So-
can crouch and walk backwards.
Yeah, because the farther you walk back here, the more angles you're cutting off from the other team, right? And if you come over here, wow, now you can see your team, right? That's why high ground doesn't
Yeah,
have
right.
cover, because it'd be kind of broken if it did. Because then you have both covers, the floor and the wall. But I think the thing we're missing from position 2 up here is that it gives us options, right? Meaning that you actually open yourself up to everything position 1 can do with just like dropping down, right? Let's say you
I could
really
also
need
drop
LOS
down
of your
into that
team, right?
doorway there as well.
Sorry?
I could also drop down into that doorway where the Sigma is as well.
Yeah, so
I
if
need
you
to
really
change.
want to get an anti this way, guess what? You can drop down here and throw an anti, right? Or if you really need the burst heal on your team, then you can drop down to position 1, like we talked about earlier, and see your team, right? But I think if you think about it more as it gives me as many options as possible, right? Then that's why we want to go to high ground. So you can think about
True.
that a little bit more especially on like defense. It'll help you out a lot.
I think that comes into practicing with this comp and talking about the pathing and the setup stage.
I think that's a
And
little
the
bit
staging.
more like individualistic. I think everyone needs to do that. So like not only
Oh,
Anna,
yeah.
right? You need to make sure that you're giving yourself as many options as possible, but still doing your job, right? Tank is a little bit different because a lot of times your job is pretty streamlined. My job is Ryan. I hold space. I go here. Now I push space, right? But like someone like a DPS or someone like a support needs to think about giving themselves a lot of options in case something happens, right? running a little bit different comp here. Do we want to talk about this comp?
Well, I mean, I guess it gives you a good idea of how we run the double shield and why I try and lean away from it.
Okay.
I think we hold the first couple of pushes pretty well here. Though, just in saying. It's dodgy, but we do it.
Okay, so they dive straight top. Tracer's behind you guys, Sombra's below. Torb has backed up. Okay. So, with this, from what comps we talked about earlier, right? Can you see now why Brawl beats dive? Because their Winston jumps here, right? Places bubble, and they use Zarya bubble, which means they're hard committing. They're in it to win it, right? Right now, right here, right now, right? Guess what? They get absolutely nothing. You throw out an even Immort for good measure.
Well, I
Guess
mean,
what?
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I just booped him up just before the Zarya bubble came in. You know, just
And
no
that's why-
value from that bubble.
That's why people are running Zarya with the Winston, because then Winston can confirm jump. And that's usually with Brig, because if you have the Brig, then you can just bop him backwards. But that's why people are running like Zarya Winston. But you can see, right? Like, look how much gas they have after that initial dive. They have absolutely nothing, right? That Winston has to jump with basically his, like, own HP. And you guys are basically running a brawl comp. You have the big rectangle, man. We're stacking a lot at the top.
This Sombra just constantly hacked to make this entire time. Pretty sure it's this map.
I heard her
Or
a
was
couple
another
of
map that
times in the
ran-
back line.
Yeah,
I
just
threw a
them.
nade and she'd reveal herself and then she'd TP.
Okay, so they primal to sustain. Bap goes down.
Just spoiler alert, I think we win this little fight.
Okay.
And we lose on the next one.
I think this
No,
fight
no,
went too long
this
and we
last-
lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
it
is the
looks like
1-5.
it.
Hi, yeah, my bad.
Okay, let's go back
Yeah,
and
so
watch
I
this
did
some.
the I followed my Zoe should I charge in Ryan flowchart. And I went for it anyway.
So do we remember what we talked about double shield, about like taking space? Do we remember that? About double shield when we talked about like splitting up and trying to encircle the other team?
Yeah, sorry, I was talking while I was muted.
No
Yeah.
problem. Okay. So given the context of this, right? They own let me use the other blue one. Actually, let's go right before they jump in their staging. Even though they probably don't know how to stage. It is still their staging. So they stage right there, right? So right before that Winston jumps in, right? They have... whatchamacall? So they have basically, because the Tracer's here, maybe they have something like that, right? And then you guys probably have something that looks like that, right? Right before this Winston jumps in, yes? Would you say that?
Yeah.
So, what is something that we want to do with double shield?
Well, we don't really want to aggress onto the space that they hold, but
Mhm.
we can definitely threaten it with our Torb and the Ash, and the Baptiste and Anna as well. Have very, very good poke
Right.
capabilities there. So we can basically just spread our threats out as much as we can,
Okay.
while also being able to focus that threat
Okay.
onto as focused of an area as possible.
Okay, so basically, I want you guys as a team to decide where everyone's gonna go. Let's say you can redo your positioning, right? Like, you have your positioning right now. I don't really like this positioning, right? We're gonna redo it. So
Okay.
let's start with Booty because you're probably so that you can start it off. So we're going to. Where would you like to go? Or would you like to stay here?
Okay, I would like to put myself in this bottom right area where their Sombra is, but back a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're gonna put yourself back here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go a little bit deeper. So what would you do? What would you do after the fight starts?
Wait, am I like here as
Um,
well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Okay.
say you're gonna talk
Okay.
for the I think it's the Baptiste here.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So after the fight starts, I'm going to watch for the cooldowns that they are using
Mm-hmm.
and do quick maths and work out what cooldowns I can use in order to continue creating opportunities to get picks and damage in for myself. So
Okay.
as
Something
that Winston
else.
leaps
Oh,
up
sorry.
there, I would probably use my coach gun to get on top of the boat shed so I can get an angle onto their
Oh,
Winston.
no, back there. Back there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of get the idea. If they decide that they're going to try and dive your team, like on this side, then you can definitely come around to the high ground and take this, right? So like dynamic rotations, right? We want to be able to rotate as much as possible.
Yeah,
To get
and
to-
the reason why I'm watching for the Winston leap and saying, okay, if he leaps and he's not leaping on me, I can use my coach gun is because I know he can't come and kill me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's that, right? Okay, who's next? Let's have Eggs go next. So Eggs, where do you want to play? Actually, first let's lay out the tanks because that might help everyone a lot. So Gat, where would you like to go?
Since I'm playing right hard and chilling at the top, I'm basically just waiting for them to dive onto me, and I counter that.
Mhm.
So for taking this exact scene here, I'm seeing the monkey diving onto me. I'm making sure that I'm in a position to not get booped off high ground from his landing.
Mhm.
And when he lands, if I'm close enough, just to pin him to basically stun him. Otherwise, keeping my shield up from. It really helps if I could draw. Keeping my shield up to make sure Zarya or something can't chuck damage into it.
Okay.
And potentially blocking off the Mercy from flying up.
Okay. So you remember how we talked about double shield and trying to spread out as much as possible?
Yeah.
You actually don't do a whole lot here, right?
I just chill.
You're basically a big zone, right? Where it says don't come here, right?
Yeah.
However, you are essentially giving the other team this entire half of the map, right? For free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you want to make sure that, yes, you don't want them to dive here and get away with it, right? But I think if you sit somewhere like back here, then you can actually come as they dive high ground, as long as your team backs up, it should be okay. And even if, let's say, they start fighting and they start dropping off here, you can come here and whack the people as they drop down off the high ground, right?
Yeah.
It's like a stinking raining men. You just whack them with hammers for free.
Yeah. So instead of initially creating the, I guess, the space that the enemy can't go into, give my own team the space for them to retreat back into.
Yeah, that would be a good way of putting it.
Cool.
Because if you, let's say, if you're playing here, right, and they dive high ground, and your team drops off here, then you can rotate here and try to shield here and try to block off, right?
Yep.
You make that safe space for all the snowflakes.
Yep.
Be a protective mummy
All right,
instead of
Doggo.
a fairy daddy.
You're next.
Wait, can I go? Just because I need to go relatively soon.
Sure.
Alright, how much control do I have over the team? Like, on where everyone else is?
Well,
Because
you can tell
personally,
me.
I would rather.
You
Yeah,
can
I
tell
would
me
rather
like
play on
ifs.
the low ground.
You
on
would
the
play
right.
on the low ground.
On the right, yeah, because then you have high ground, which makes you less vulnerable to Sombra. Either at
So
the
you can
backup
rotate
point
to
or on
there,
the
or you
right.
can rotate to there, right?
Yeah, or on the right as
me
well.
try.
There's that high ground with the mega. That high ground where the boxes are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah, we
basically,
can
you're
play
gonna
there
play.
instead.
You're gonna play here with the Reinhardt, and then you're gonna come here based on the situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I play.
That sounds pretty good to me. All right. Doggo, where do you want to go?
I mean, I'd usually just chill where the main tank is.
Okay.
As like I mean, I'm playing Sigma here, but usually when I play obviously Zarya, I'm usually with the main tank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get a couple of things out of the way. So before we talked about spreading out with double shield, right? And we want to make sure that we are taking up as much space as possible because we want to give them hell as they try to stage or path or whatever they want to do, right? In this case, it's probably going to be stage. But you want to try to make sure that you're in your that you can deal damage to the other team with still an escape path, right? So I think if you stay up here, and probably give your Torb or your Ash, either one, whichever one you want to put there, right? Angles onto the team and you can back up with them. I think that'd be very helpful. Because if you stay with the Reinhardt, what that does is you're basically doubling up value, right? Because we want as much map control as possible. Because when they jump into us, right? They might be you want to stay at your effective range, right? Which is, not melee range. So let's say they jump your Reinhardt and your Reinhardt's over here and they jump him. If you're up here, you get to poke down onto the people that are trying to walk in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I think an analogy for double shield would you be like, you want to be that obnoxious guy in the airplane that sort of takes up both armrests. Like you want to just control that space. Like I'm the guy that's taking up both of these armrests.
I have both
screw all of
armrests,
you.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
like
aggravate assault anyone who tries to take it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So like when you're that guy, right, taking up both armrests, and the other guy's like I kind of want my armrest, right? Like
Yeah,
you know,
because I'm like, I'm in the middle seat. Like, give me both armrests, and you're like, no.
yeah, you can be the annoying guy. So like if their Winston jumps your Ryan that's all the way over here, right? And you're like, no, I want both armrests. Then you can be like, you're not getting any healing, right? You're gonna shoot damage at the healers, right? And you possibly have your Torb with you. You might have your Ana, you might have your Bap with you, depending on their situation, right? To be able to rain down on top of them. And if they jump you, guess what? You can just get out and dodge, right? They call security on you, then guess what? You could just back up, right? You can back up to your Ryan.
Yeah, you
And try
back
to
up and you're
fight
like,
from there.
okay, I'm gonna pretend as if I'm giving you an armrest, and then when you leave, I'm gonna take it back.
Yeah. And guess what? Guess what? If they decide, guys, we're gonna actually that dive didn't work, and we used like 20 million cooldowns. We're actually gonna back up and reset, and you're gonna be like, I'm gonna go up top again, and you're gonna have to do it all again, right? So then that's why you want to really be up here, because it gives you options, right? Like we talked about earlier with the eggs, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Are we good?
makes sense. I think so. Does
Doggo,
anybody?
does it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. And this is not only for Blizzard World, but a lot of other maps that have similar high grounds, right? You want to basically be able to spread out. If you said over here, you would actually had a pretty similar idea, where like you're trying to make sure that if they dive somewhere, let's say they dive high ground, right? Then you have options to be able to come back this way and throw damage this way. But high ground just gives you a little bit more options, so we're gonna stay up there for now. Okay. Let's go with Squelch next. So Squelch, your Rhine is playing over here. Your Bap is playing over here. Your Sig is gonna be on the high ground. And who else are we gonna do? And Pasty is gonna be back here. So where do we want to be, Squelch?
I think I'd probably go high ground.
You gonna go high ground
Up
with the
the
Sig?
Sig. Yeah.
All right. Is there a reason why you want to go high ground with the Sig?
Mostly to just attack anyone who's trying to attack the Rhine, I suppose, because that's just free real estate for me sitting up there. I
Okay.
suppose I sort of help the Sigma if they were to get dived.
Yeah, so if Sigma gets dove, you're able to enforce, and you're also able to do the same thing as we talked about with Doggo, right? You're able to say no to the people when they hard engage, right? If they stage badly, right, then you can go ahead and just shoot damage at them while they try to help their Winston, right?
Yeah.
All right. Who's left? Eggs. Where do we want to be?
I'll probably say high ground, and
Mhm.
if they do start to dive, I'll probably back into the room on the left or right.
I think you
And just
definitely have a
back in
couple
there.
options here. I think it is okay if you stay high ground, but don't feel free to also stay back with your team and rotate with your Reinhardt.
Yeah, if I see them getting dove, I can always just jump down and come around the right of spawn, I suppose. Right,
I've
right of point.
I've also seen Anna's playing by that like I don't know what to call it, between where the boat shed and the second choke is. There's like that blue thing. Yeah, you can stand there and heal people on the high ground from there.
I
That's
kind of
not
don't like
great.
there. I kind of don't like there because if they are able to actually stage properly and they end up staging high ground and you're here, you're dead. You're gone.
In saying that though, I could stay up on high ground near point because that'd
Plus, yeah,
give me
really.
both angles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on boat shed, because
Okay.
then you could heal people on. Yeah, I get. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, really shit
So
LOS there, by the way, Booty.
okay. So we are up at the hour, right? So we're gonna finish this up, and then if you guys think of anything else, we're gonna go over that. If you really need to. And then, but other than that, we're gonna be done. So let's get through this, right? So we have decided that Ryan's gonna be here. Ryan. Sig is gonna be here. And then I'm gonna say Bap and Anna would probably be over here. Anna can also be over here, depending on the things. Torb / Ash is gonna be here. Basically, just one DPS has to be in one place and the other one has to be in the other. And then Torb / Ash, right? And basically, we want to make it so that if they dive anything, right, the other people, if they dive high ground, right, we want to give them an escape, and then we want to retake high ground after that's over. Or if they dive our core, right, then we can just like sustain over here with the immortality field, and we can throw damage in from the high ground. Make sense? Are we good on that?
That makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So, is there anything else we want to go over?
So as Ash in that situation where I'm holding on the low ground, just by the point, would coach gunning back up to the boat shed be a good idea? Would I be better off coach gunning over towards the next choke and staying on the low ground to help with the team getting?
Is this assuming they dive here?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they dive here, I think if you actually come around this way while your Rhine comes this way, it actually helps you get a lot of free damage in.
Okay.
Because then if you also threaten this space, because if someone comes up here, you shoot them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else we want to go over or look at? Okay. So to finish off, we're gonna go ahead and think of a couple other or the things we want to make sure before next time, right? So what do we want to have done by next time, right? Is there anything that anyone in specific wants to do?
I think we should nail down a comp that we can just practice with in scrims,
Okay.
and that's something
I
that's
thought
actually
that
going to
was
be
double shield.
working and not really be that goofy.
Okay, nail down
Yeah.
a comp. Anything else?
Properly work on positioning, like.
Yeah, I can agree
Okay.
with that.
I think we definitely talked about a
Absolutely.
double shield positioning. So if we do play double shield, I'm just gonna put DS position, right? Anything else?
I think we should work on dive, the stages of dive. So
Okay. So
the
dive steps. Okay.
yeah.
As
Anything
part
else?
of that, it would probably be target priority as well. Would that be part of the dive strats? Like,
Yeah.
Wait, sorry guys,
Yeah.
I've got to go. Nice
Catch you,
seeing you.
man.
All right. See you later.
See ya.
I'll
Yeah,
be playing next scrim, hopefully. Maybe
Cool, no worries.
actually. Depends what day it is. But I will try
I'll
my
let your
best.
confidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll need to check the schedule. But bye guys.
Bye. Catch ya.
All right.
So yeah.
So we have
I think-
those. Is there anything else we need to lay out?
I think target priority comes into setting up a plan before we actually get into a game.
Ah, okay. So planning, right? And I think that's a good list. I think if we put any more, then it's gonna become overwhelming, right? Okay. So the
Yeah.
things we want to do, right, is we want to nail down a comp. And then we also want to do planning. I would say those are the two main things, right? And then as you guys pick a comp, right, whether it's double shield, whether it's dive, you need to make sure that you do those things that we talked about. Okay? All right.
Yeah, sounds good.
Is there anything else?
Not
Not
that I can think
really.
of.
All right. Well, just as my policy, right? Feel free to come and ask me. Don't feel like, it's only during the VOD time you can ask questions, right? Like if you guys have an individual question about like stuff you guys want to do, or if you have like a team question about like we need help making a comp, feel free to DM me and I can help you guys out with that, okay?
Alright. Thank
All
you.
right.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
I will see you guys later then. Good luck.
Thanks,
Thanks for that.
Vtaki. Have a good one.
Yep.
Yeah, thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.